Hey guys, it's Kristen Phantazia and welcome back to my channel. So this week's episode of Being Mary Jane was heartbreaking, to say the absolute least. Like, it touched on a very, very serious subject, suicide, that a lot of people just kind of assume doesn't happen in the African American community, which is that's just not true. So the episode started off with, it was like paralleling, like going back and forth between Lisa, you know, getting ready for bed, and Mary Jane getting ready for bed. And it's just kind of flashing back and forth. You know, you see Lisa eating dinner alone. You see her staring at herself in the mirror. You see her getting in the shower. After she's gotten out of the shower, she gets dressed. She pours herself a glass of wine. It flashes to Mary Jane, who's, you know, putting medicine on her face, and she's still scarred from the accident. She's sitting on the toilet. She's trying to use the bathroom. It flashes back to Lisa, who with wine in hand has taken from what I could see, 3 different prescription pills and just poured them into a bowl like it was candy. Just poured them all into the bowl. And she starts popping them. Like I said, she's eating them like candy, and she's eating medication, drinking wine, eating medication, drinking wine. And she just lays back on the bed, and she's just really, really chill. She's holding this glass of wine. Then it shows a clip of like the wine, what's left in the thing. It starts to spill on the covers, and then her hand drops it. You can still see that she's breathing. Once it did like a zoomed out of her, she was still breathing, but her mouth was foaming from, you know, the different medications she had taken. Her mouth was foaming, and then eventually she stopped breathing. Now, at first, when she was taking these pills, my mind, I was kind of wondering, I didn't know how far I was going to get. I was like, is somebody going to check on her? They're going to find that because you remember, like, early in this show, she had attempted, if I'm not mistaken, she had attempted suicide before, and Mary Jane came over and like saved her. And so I was like, is this another one of those things? Is this another, you know, call for attention? Because we don't know a whole lot about Lisa. What we do know is that Lisa is very smart. She's a doctor. She has a medical degree. She's been friends with Mary Jane for years and years and years. And that you also know that she's in love with David, and she feels inferior to Mary Jane. But beyond that, like, you don't really know a lot about her. So Lisa died, and David actually was the one to find Lisa's body. He tried to go to Mary Jane's place. He tried calling her, and she wasn't answering the phone. She deleted the number. He showed up at the house. She didn't answer the door. She actually found out the news through her niece, Niecy. And the clips, it's showing a clip of the mom breaking down. Niecy's really sad, and you would almost think that it was somebody that they knew. Like, I thought that it was somebody that her mom knew because of the commercials and things like that, but it wasn't. It was Lisa. And so Mary Jane, when she first gets this news, she doesn't cry. She doesn't have any like outbursts of sad emotion, which honestly, that's the reaction I've had in the past when someone I know and I love has passed away. At first, it doesn't hit me. I'm not the like immediately crying type of person. When I first hear news, it's kind of weird, especially if you have dealings with an individual. It's hard to accept that they're gone. And so this episode, it was just an hour long, but I feel like a lot happened, but not a lot happened, because it was completely centered around Lisa's suicide. And we learned some stuff about Lisa, you know, towards the end of the episode. There was a scene where Mary Jane's having a conversation with her mother. Her mother was like, we killed her. Like, we killed her. She needed to talk, and we were ignoring her. And Mary Jane was just kind of like, okay, Mom. She was like, that. Her mom was like, that's the only thing you have to say. She was like, I have a lot to say, but, you know, I'm not going to sit up here and be a part of your pity party. Like, we have plans to make for her, you know, funeral arrangements. So then that's when she finds out that Mary Jane's mom had actually called Lisa's family, whom Lisa hasn't talked to in years. Like years. So Mary Jane is like livid. She's pissed. You can tell. You don't really know why, but she basically said like these feelings, these negative feelings that Lisa was having, that was planted in her by her family. And I know some of you watching may relate. Family issues, like growing up, especially if you're in a house until you're 18 years old, 18 years of conditioning and like situations and people, like that's a lot to like mold a person. So I was like, you know what, if Lisa hadn't talked to her family in a decade plus years, whose place? It was not, I don't feel like it was her mother's place to reach out to her parents. If anything, maybe Mary Jane, because that was her best friend, that was her sister. But I think that the timing was wrong, and that should have been a decision that Mary Jane and her mother made together, not just one that Mary Jane's mom made, when really she jumped down Lisa's throat last week worse than Mary Jane did. Like the stuff she said to her was way worse than Mary. At least in the end, Mary Jane, like when she went off on Lisa last week, she was like, but I still love you. I just need time. Mary Jane's mama went smooth off on Lisa. So I just don't think that was her place. So there was a scene where Mary Jane is at Lisa's home, and you know there's doorbell ring or knock or whatever. Open the door, and it's Lisa's parents, her mom and her dad, or her stepfather. They come into the house, and Mary Jane and Lisa's mom start having a conversation, and Mary Jane is like, her stepdad is not, he's not going to be at the service. It's either him or me. Like, we're not both going to be there. It's one or the other. And I'm sitting there kind of like, okay. At this point, there's some thoughts racing in my head. Obviously, Lisa's stepdad had did something to her, but none of this is confirmed at this point. And so there, you know, stepdad walks up into the room, and he's like, you know, what are y'all in here whispering about? Makes me feel like y'all are talking about me. And Mary Jane's just kind of looking like stupid pissed, and she's talking to Lisa's mom as if her stepdad is not right there. And he was like, you know, you're not finna talk to me like I'm not standing right here. And I'm like, you know, that's irritating. If you've ever been in a situation where it's 3 people or even more than 3, but somebody is talking about you, but they're not talking to you, they're talking like you are not even standing there, that's a very irritating position to be in. So I could understand where, you know, how you felt about that. But again, Mary Jane was just like, it's me or him, so let me know by 9 tonight what you decide. And then it flashes to a scene where Lisa's mom and dad are sitting in the car, and you know, her stepdad is just like, you know Lisa's bipolar, and she was like, you know, she had mental issues basically. And Lisa's mom is just like, look, I need you not to come because Mary Jane needs to be there, people are going to talk. And then her dad was like, well, that's one thing I don't like about you, like the weakness in you, like who cares if people talk type thing. And she was like, I just need you not to be there. And he said, okay, you know, said he was cool. Flashes to, it just shows scenes of everybody getting ready for, you know, the homegoing service. And Lisa's mom had asked that Mary Jane said a couple words at the funeral. So then gets to the funeral, before the funeral's happening, and Mary Jane has this conversation. Well, okay, a little before this, Mary Jane, before they started making plans for the funeral, had met up with 3 of her friends. So like Kara had showed up, and you know, people came over and they were just drinking and kind of like going over memories of Lisa. But at this moment, she was having a conversation with David, and she was just talking about how when it finally hit her and she finally cried, she was crying for hours because she was picking out a dress for the service, and the dress that she picked out was a dress that Lisa was like, you don't need to buy that, like, girl, it's too expensive. And she bought it anyway, and she was like, you know, Lisa was right. I found the dress cheaper the next week. And I just cried. I cried for hours, and she was just really kind of expressing, you know, I heard everything. And so David made a statement, and he said, it's not your fault. And she was like, excuse me? He was like, basically her taking her life is not your fault. And that sent Mary Jane into this like outrage. She was angry. She was like, I know it's not my fault. Like, basically, don't try to pin pin this situation on me because you don't want to take responsibility for the part that you played in the, you know, the emotions that she was feeling and that she was having. She snatched away. She was like, you know, David, I don't have anything for you. Like, basically, not now, not ever. He gets up, he walks. The service starts. It shows Lisa in the casket. For me personally, going to funerals, that is one of the hardest parts of going to a funeral, because you're used to seeing that person with life in their body, breathing, and to see them lifeless in a casket without any breath. They don't even really look like themselves. A lot of times there's a little extra weight on them. They don't look like the person that you love and the person that you remember. And that's really hard. They showed that open casket. And Lisa was always beautiful to me. She was a beautiful black woman, and no different in death. She, you know, was still so beautiful. So Mary Jane finally gets up in front of, well, let me go back a little bit further. I keep forgetting. It's just because this issue is so heavy, it's just weighing on me. But before it showed Lisa's body and before the funeral actually began, Lisa's stepfather actually did show up, although the mom had said that he wasn't going to be there. And, you know, as Mary Jane, it gave her kind of an ultimatum: either he's going to be there, I'm going to be there. And he showed up. And I guess the lady who, I'll say she works for the church and or the funeral services, and was like, you know, we're about to begin. May I remind you that this is the house of the Lord and everyone is welcome here. And I was like, hey, I can't argue that. Come as you are, you know. God, they bring them into that house, bring them into my kingdom. I can't argue with the fact that everyone is welcome in the church, but I understand Mary Jane's feelings. Her feelings are valid. So when Mary Jane gets up and she's getting ready to do she's saying some words, eulogy if you will, for Lisa, she begins by saying, we lie. We all lie. We're good at lying. Like, when somebody asks you how you are, and be like, I'm fine, even if you're not fine. And she was like, she believed that their lies, she was like, our lies killed Lisa. She was like, as you know, like, Lisa was, now, and I will say, in this like 5-minute time block, I learned more about Lisa than I feel like I had known for the past 2 seasons. So Lisa was born in Ohio. She moved to Atlanta when she was 8. She graduated from Harry Medical School, and she done work at, you know, volunteer work at the Boys and Girls Club. She had done missionary type work in Africa. Lisa was doing the damn thing. Like, Lisa had her foot in the community. And that goes to show you that just because a person is so happy on the outside and they hold themselves together very well does not mean that they have everything together. You still should check on that person. You still should be like, hey, how are you? Like, are you doing okay today? And mean it. Actually care what they have to say afterwards. Because I feel like a lot of times, well, this is kind of a side note, but like, you see somebody be like, hey, how are you doing? And they'll be like, oh, I'm fine, and you? Do you notice a lot of times you don't even listen to a person's response, or sometimes if you're the person getting asked, you don't even respond. It's just a normal, it's just so commonplace. Be like, hey, how are you? And no one really cares what comes after that. So Mary Jane made a point to say that. The thing that she said that just, I was sitting in my seat and I just sunk back a little bit. She was like, what you may not know about Lisa is that she was getting molested by her stepfather from, I think she said, age 7 or 8 to 16. That's 8+ years. Around 8 years. So we get molested. And Mary Jane said it in the church in front of all these people who love Lisa, who obviously had no idea about this. The mom immediately starts bawling, crying onto her, I'm assuming, brother's shoulder, somebody, you know, whomever he is. David is looking silly. Mary Jane's family is just like, what? Everyone is kind of shocked. Not only did she, because she said this in the church at the homegoing service, but it's like, wow. Now you start to understand that some of these issues that it seemed like Lisa just had out of nowhere, or they may have been planted in a man, you know, David, that's not what it was. There are things when people are considering suicide or feel like they are not enough and that their life is not valued anymore. A lot of times that stems from things in the past, like a death in the family you never get over, a traumatizing situation that you never had the opportunity to really heal from, especially with things like rape and molestation. You feel at fault for a lot of those things. Your loved ones, sometimes they don't believe you, or they think, especially at that young age, that you're, you know, being dramatic or you're making something up. And Mary Jane made a point to say, she was like, she had been living with that hurt for years, every day of her life, for the rest of her life. That was the kind of hurt that she was living with. That hit home. BET, thank you for airing Being Mary Jane. Being Mary Jane, thank you for addressing these issues of molestation and suicide, because to me it was not just about the suicide, which I'm glad that they showed. I think that it was also about the molestation and those issues that a person has that people tend to ignore, or they don't try to help them. If you or someone you know has had one of those traumatizing you know, childhood situations, make sure that you're dealing with that. Talk to somebody if you need to talk to somebody. Go to counseling. Do what it is what's necessary for you to heal, and so that you can continue to live your life. Because I know a lot of times just mulling over issues is not dealing with them. And as far as suicide goes, I just kudos to this show for shining a light on that, specifically in the African American community, because we just think that just doesn't happen. Suicide is something that happens to white people, and it happens to other people. Black people don't commit suicide. We're so strong. We have so many other issues, but one thing we don't do is we don't commit suicide. That is not true. And I find it interesting because, you know, Being Mary Jane, they kind of foreshadowed this happening. They had conversations about rates of African American males in suicide. They even had I think Mary Jane had made a comment to Lisa at one point a couple episodes ago about, she was like, well, I'm worried about black men committing suicide, and you're right here staring me in my face. Like, do I need to be worried about you? Well, Mary Jane, you probably did need to be worried about her. Now, I don't think that it's nobody's fault when someone makes a decision to take their own life. That is a decision that they made, a decision that I'm not even going to say come to peace with, but they made that decision. No one can be blamed. You didn't take that person's life. It hurts like hell. When Mary Jane was going through her phone and she was seeing these missed calls that she had from Lisa, and how Lisa had tried to reach out. I even think that the day that she took her life, she had tried to reach out to Mary Jane, and everyone had been ignoring her. I think that this episode was needed. I look forward to see what happens in the future with them moving forward with Lisa's death. Lisa, you will be missed. Thank you for allowing your story and your time on Being Mary Jane to shine light on such a real issue. Depression, bipolar disorder, suicide, post-traumatic stress from situations like molestation and things that happen when you're younger. Those are real. And thank you for allowing your character to shine a light on those issues in the African American community. Okay, you guys, thank you for tuning in. Last week, as far as like the rates of views for my video, my Being Mary Jane, a season premiere video, actually did really good as far as the amount of views that it got in this time frame. So I'm going to continue to make these videos. So thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to comment on this video, to like this video, to subscribe to my channel, and even go back and watch my older videos. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I love to hear from you guys. And also, if you know anyone that is dealing with suicide or thoughts of suicide, please reach out to someone, get help, get them help. Below in the description bar, I'm going to have a phone number for the suicide prevention hotline that you can call, and also I'm going to have a website that you can go to for more information. Depression is real. Suicide is real. Please, 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 please seek help if you need it. Again, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, you guys.